Beginning now with Chapter 7, Section 2, title Athens and Sparta. What we're looking for in this section, we want to know more about how people lived in ancient Sparta, some of the results of Persian invasions against Greece, and how Athens and Sparta dealt with those, as well as the other Greek city-states, and some things that came about because of conflicts that the Athenian Empire had problems with others as well as outsiders. Vocabulary from pages 206 and 207. Sparta, which is a city-state in southern Greece. We know that it's on the Peloponnesian Peninsula. And the word helot, slaves in Sparta that were owned by the city-state. No one in particular owned them. Sparta owned them. Page 206 begins with a legend that came from Sparta. And it talks about a boy who was training to be a Spartan warrior who tried to hide a baby fox that he had caught so that he had some food. As we will find out a little bit later, when you were training as a young boy, you were withheld food. And so part of proving yourself as a Spartan warrior was being able to survive on little food and finding what you could to eat. And this boy had hidden a baby fox under his cloak so that he had something to eat later on. And the fox was rather violently attacking his side, and ultimately the boy ended up dying from his wounds from the fox that he was holding under his cloak. But that boy was held in high esteem because he didn't give up. He didn't show that he was in any pain. Nobody even questioned that he was doing things incorrectly. He was holding that fox under his cloak, and he was not even indicating that there were any problems. I'd say he's pretty tough. The title on page 207, Living in Sparta. Now we start here with a large stylized picture of a Spartan warrior. Now, they wouldn't go into battle looking exactly like this, but they certainly would be probably just about that muscular. He almost looks like a superhero from a comic book for as muscular as he is, and that's with good reason. They were very lean. They didn't eat any more than was absolutely necessary. They believed in the Spartan life. And now that word Spartan even means someone who has no frills. So they did a lot of work, they did a lot of training, and ultimately, yeah, you would expect a Spartan soldier to look a lot like this guy. Simple, but you might call him ripped. Early on, Sparta, not everybody looked that way. We now think of Spartans as all being tough and that they were all courageous and strong. But up until 600 BC, Spartans were pretty much like all of the other city-states. But they had some problems. They had gotten into a number of skirmishes, some small wars, trying to deal with the people around them, and ultimately they ended up attacking and conquering all of the other little towns and villages around them, and took in all of those people that they defeated as slaves to Sparta. They became helots. And because of that, everything in Sparta ultimately ended up revolving around war and preparing for war. They were worried about those people that they had conquered, trying to revolt against them. And so the city of Sparta ended up being almost like a prison camp. The helots in Sparta were a huge number of them. There were more helots than there were Spartan citizens, and so naturally the Spartans were concerned about a helot revolt, and so they acted like the city-state was just a constant armed prison camp. Because they had the helots, though, those helots did almost all of the farming. They did almost all of that normal everyday work. And because of that, that allowed the men to train and fight in battles. That made sure that those men were completely prepared, and they didn't have to worry about that day-to-day stuff that men in other city-states did. So that led to this idea of Sparta before self. And you may have seen that around Van Buren here. We have some signs up, team before self. That's the hashtag used on the Van Buren Athletics page for the Twitter account, team before self. And that comes directly from the ideas that Sparta created. The idea that you had to do whatever was necessary, even if that meant problems for you personally. You take care of the city of Sparta first. Now, if we compare a little bit what we already know about Athens with what we know now about Sparta, we can compare. In this case, we have a little Venn diagram. So Spartans we can consider harsh, cruel, tough, silent, grim, simple, and believed in Sparta before self, the city first. In Athens, what we already know, Athens was free. They were open. They were philosophical and thoughtful. They were ornate. You might call them artsy and rhetorical. It's a big, long word that means they talk a lot. They believed in the strength of the individual. What the two had in common was that they were both very strong in ancient Greece. They had a big, strong army, and both of them were feared and revered, meaning they were respected for their army and what they could do.